Alright, so hello everyone, and welcome back to Strategy Sunday. This time we have Volume 8 covering Dr. Jill Trent. Big thanks already to Kiet for helping, and yeah, we will just jump right into it. So, the basic stats. Jill is a melee move 2 fighter with 13 health. She has a sidekick called Daisy, who is also melee and has 6 health. Okay, so move to melee kinda sucks. We know that move to melee fighters often have problems. And 13 health is the lowest we have yet seen, except for Deadpool, but we don't talk about Deadpool. And yeah, your sidekick kind of compensates for your low mobility, because otherwise you would just be a move to melee fighter without anything special, so you would have to approach most of the time, but at least Daisy gives you a bit of more options there. 6 health on her brings your total health pool up to 19, which is just average, as we saw in the Widow video. But please, let me tell you one thing. This 13 health on Jill is insanely misleading. There is technically infinite healing in the deck. Of course, it won't be, but that can be way more than you think. Yeah, 13 unique cards means sometimes you can struggle to find a key card if you're looking for one of the 2-offs in your deck. But it's not like the end of the world. It's not Arthur level, it's not Alice level of unique cards, so I guess you're fine with that. 12 or 13 is usually like the way you want to go, so that's fine. So yeah, let's talk about your character ability. It says Gadgetology. Gadgetology. Please help me, that's a weird word. At the start of your turn, activate one of your gadgets. Whenever Jill Trent attacks, resolve the active gadget's effect. Okay, so you kinda have two different character abilities because you have two different gadgets, which we'll talk about right after this. Being able to choose which one you want active at the start is really cool. So depending on the matchup, depending on the situation, you can just decide like which gadget you prefer right now, which ability you prefer. That's really cool. One thing to note, the gadget's effects only resolve when Jill attacks, specifically, so it won't ever be on defense, and it will almost never be with Daisy. There's one exception for that. So before any game, what you want to do as Jill is try to remember your opponent's deck, what your game plan will be regarding the gadgets, and then decide which you want to use at the time. The gadgets both care about the printed value of your opponent's defense card when you attack them, so deck knowledge will help you to get the most value out of this as possible. And one last thing to note, since this is at the start of your turn, you activate one of your gadgets. If you are going second, or I should say not first, you don't have an active gadget from the start of the game. So player 1 can attack you and you don't have a gadget, which doesn't matter as much usually, since the gadgets only resolve when attacking, but there's one card in particular that actually does affect, and yeah. But let's talk about the gadgets. We have first, it's the Hypno-Ray Blaster. It says, during combat, if your card's printed value is lower than your opponent's, reveal the top card of your opponent's deck. Increase the value of your attack by the boost value of the revealed card. Okay, this is an insanely cool and useful effect, I might just say that. Whenever you would lose a combat, this can add up to 4 to your attack, depending on your opponent's boost values. If you reveal something like Beastform from deck, Dracula, and you would lose combat, you add +4 to your attack, which is insane value. But this kind of means you almost always get +1 on your attacks, at least, or you deal damage, most of the time. The only time that doesn't apply is when your opponent's printed value is actually exactly the same as your own. So like I said, deck knowledge is really good for Jill. If you know someone like Luke will probably only defend for print 2 or lower, well, this is maybe not the right gadget to pick, or only for specific cards. Ideally, of course, you want to only barely lose combat with this to get the most value. For example, if you attack with a 2 value attack and your opponent defends with a printed 3, that's basically optimal for you. And yeah, then you probably get the most amount of damage. Getting the extra deck knowledge can also be really nice, since your opponent will most likely draw the revealed card on their next turn. So you will know what they have in their hand, and if they don't play it on their next turn, well, this will just repeat. Since you'll attack again, you know again what they have. So that's insane hand knowledge, and it can actually lead to you, if you're going a bit more aggressive, almost knowing your opponent's full hand at some point. And that's really cool. You have this active for most of the game to be more flexible in your attacks, since otherwise your attacks are just kinda your printed values and they do what they do. And this also makes your lower value attacks actually really scary and good, since it can just bump up their value. Also, one thing I told in the last slide, that there is one particular case where it does matter when you don't have an active gadget at the start of the game. This is why. There is a card in your deck, a cancel, that requires this to be active to cancel the effects on your opponent's card. So if you don't have this active, well, you can't cancel. So at the start of the game, if you're going second and you're getting attacked first turn, you can't cancel. That's one thing you might want to note. And yeah, we'll just swap to the other option, which is the Ultra Biotic Tonic. It says, after combat, if your card's printed value is higher than your opponent's, Jill Trent recovers 1 health. Alright, so yeah, that's huge healing potential in the late game. Like I said, it's insane. Technically you have infinite health with this if you always get the right values. Of course that won't happen so often, but yeah. This is often only used once the game is going towards fatigue and deck counts are getting low, since Hypno-Ray can't really increase the value of your cards if there are no cards in your opponent's deck to reveal and there's a D missing. Man! Also, later in the game you know better which printed values your opponent still has left to block with, which makes it way easier to proc this. And also you might not have any of your cancels left, so it doesn't really matter if you have Hypno-Ray or this for that. Before that, I wouldn't really advise using this too often in most matchups, since it leaves you open without cancels. Of course, if that's no problem, like against Bigfoot, for example, yeah, well, you can almost just stay at this for the whole game if you want to, and heal. And one thing, of course, you can do is, of course, if you're on Hypno-Ray Blaster, your opponent will expect low value attacks. If you are on Tonic, your opponent will expect high value attacks. So you can kind of play around that, and if you're on Tonic, you can attack with something small to kind of waste their big defenses. And if you're on Hypno-Ray, you can attack with one of your big swings to maybe get some good damage over their most likely lower defense. So yeah, let's jump right into the cards. First of all is Battle of Wits, which is a 2 value attack for Jill Trent with a boost value of 4. It has 3 copies and it says, after combat, reveal the top card of your deck and your opponent's deck. If your card has a higher boost value, deal 3 damage to the opposing fighter. Okay, 2 value attacks are usually not so great and rely on their attacks. Of course, this is not the case for Jill's 2 value attacks, since Hypno-Ray can buff up your low attacks, and average block value is 3, so attacking with a 2 is often the most optimal attack you can do if you are on Hypno-Ray. So that's actually really cool. And the interaction of this and Hypno-Ray is even better, since it almost guarantees damage against most defenses. Since first, during combat you reveal the top card of your opponent's deck. If it has a high boost value, you add that on top, and then you get some really good damage over their defense. If it has a low boost value, you are more likely to proc the after combat effect, since both cards will be revealed. The opponent's card will still be the same if they didn't draw from a card effect, Um, and then you will probably have the higher boost value, and it will be 3 auto damage. That's really cool. Also, this is your only 4 boosts in the deck, so it's great just to move the 6 spaces later in Fatigue or whenever you want, since if Daisy is dead, you are basically just a normal move 2 melee fighter, which can lead to some problems. But having a 4 boost in deck is really good, and this is a really cool card, flexible. Of course, the bane of this card is Feint, since Hypno Ray won't actually increase your card's value, since Feint is also a 2, and it will cancel the effect. So that's where at some point maybe you want to be on tonic and attack with this, just like so your opponent is not as likely to feint it. But yeah, this is a really cool card and will often at least deal some damage, whether it is from like bumping up the value with Hypno Ray or actually the after combat effect. Then next up we have Utility Belt. It's a 3 value versatile for Jill Trent with a boost value of 3, and it says after combat, choose one. Jill Trent recovers 1 health, move Jill Trent 1 space, or draw 1 card. You have 3 copies of this. Okay, 3 value versatiles are good. Nothing you will really are complaining about. Being able to choose between the 3 different options is really cool, because all of them are useful in some way. If you choose the recover 1 health, well, you kinda have a 4 value block over here against most attacks. Of course, something like winning combat regarding stuff like still standing will still win against this. You won't take any damage, so it's technically like a 4 value block, but not for the effects. Also against She-Hulk for like something like Omega, where it's conditional on dealing 2 combat damage. That will still happen, but you're kind of sparing that 1 HP. So in most cases it's kind of like a 4 block, but there are some interactions where it's not. The movement is actually not conditional. It has to be exactly 1 space. It's not where you can just say, yeah, I'll move Jill up to 1 space and then just stay here. No, it says exactly 1 space. It's not up to. So you have to move her. And then, of course, drawing a card is really nice. This is actually your only reliable draw on a combat card in the deck, so in some aggro matchups that might be more valuable than recovering the health and or moving the space away, since 1 card in your hand more means like, yeah, you have more options, you're more flexible, maybe your opponent is a bit more scared because they don't have such big hand advantage again. And yeah, also this is your only healing in the deck if you are not taking tonic into consideration. So with this, if you get all 3 like with no damage over the top, this kind of leads to you having 16 health if you use the healing every single time. And that's already pretty beefy, since you have like insane defenses, as we will see. Well, yeah. Next up, we get to another card. It's a 3 value block card for Jill only. It is Hypnotist with a boost value of 1. It says immediately, if your active gadget is Hypno Ray Blaster, cancel all effects on your opponent's card. You have 2 copies of this. Okay, 3 blocks, like I said, are average, are good. Canceling your opponent's effects is really good, and this is the card I've talked about earlier, where it is conditional on having Hypno Ray active. So usually the risk while playing cancels is their low printed value, which can sometimes be punished really hard. If you play a feint into a commanding impact, that will lead to you taking 3 damage and you feel really bad, whereas if you play feint into a Dinosaurs Rule the Earth or Voyage, whatever, you feel really good. So cancels often are kind of like risky to play in some matchups if your opponent has the option to really hit big over it. This kind of negates that, since this is a 3 value defense and you're not feeling as bad if this goes into a commanding as you're otherwise. Of course, this only cancels if Hypno Ray is active, so at the start of the game, if you're going second and your opponent attacks first turn, well, you can't cancel with this since you don't have an active gadget at the start of your game. And often, like I said, you just want to keep Hypno Ray active to keep the threat of this card being at play. That can be relevant in some matchups, whereas actually in some other matchups, especially later into the game, you might just wanna not have Hypno active to not cancel your opponent's effect, to actually give them their draw or whatever, to push them further into the deck. And there are some cool things you can do with that, actually not playing this as a cancel. And yeah, this is the only actual cancel in your deck. So Daisy can't feint, like she can't cancel. Everything regarding effects will go through on her. But yeah, you probably ask yourself, well, why are we looking at an attack card, then a versatile, and now a defense card, not only for Jill? Usually, like, I do it like, yeah, we'd go over the attacks first, then the versatiles, then the defense, and schemes. Or on Black Widow, we did the missions first. Well, there is one reason for that, and that is Helpful Assistant. It is a scheme card for Daisy only, with a boost rate of 3, and it says shuffle up to 3 Jill Trent cards in your discard pile back into your deck. Draw 1 card, and you have 2 copies. So, being able to shuffle a total of 6 cards back is huge. This gives your deck kinda 36 cards if you actually get to play both of these, and that makes Daisy one of the crazy, most worth sidekicks in the game. It's insane. Since you only can shuffle Jill cards, you only have the option of Battle of Wits, Hypnotist, or Utility Belt, the 3 cards we've talked about until now. And they are all great options to recur. So if like Daisy is getting pressured, and just get whatever you want. This is kind of like a super pass in Fatigue, since first action you play this, shuffle 3 cards back, draw 1, so you get +2 in your deck. Second action you maneuver, so you'll end the turn with 1 more card in your deck than you started with, which is like insane. That's holy. And you have 2 of these. And yeah, like I said, all 3 options are really good to recur. Often you actually just boost with your Jill cards. If Daisy is about to die, let's say you have 2 of them in your discard pile, you have 1 Battle of Wits, 1 Utility Belt, and Daisy's on 1 HP because of some reason, and it's leading to your turn, you have this in hand, you might just want to maneuver and boost with one other Jill card to actually get max value with this on second action, and shuffle all 3 back to kinda increase your deck size a bit more than you otherwise would. Of course, you won't get more value because you're not actually really using the card. Of course, yeah, you're still getting the value of the increased movement from the boost, but you're not actually using the card. But it will still increase your deck size and can matter in some cases. And yeah, this is just the main reason why your opponent wants to get rid of Daisy, because if you get both of these with 36 cards, you're probably going to have a lead in Fatigue, and then yeah. This is crazy. But yeah, now we will just jump into the cards as normally. We have Energizing Spray. It's a 5 value attack, any, with a boost value of 1, and says after combat, gain 1 action. You have 2 copies of this. Okay. Well, 5 value attacks are obviously great. They will usually deal 2 damage over their 3 block. Against Feint, even 3. So, yep, really good. The action gain is actually insane, since you can chain both of these for a good combat. And I have a typo again. Damn, what's up, Marine, this time? You can chain both of these for a good combo turn, so you can attack with the first one, attack with the second one. If it doesn't get cancelled, and even if it gets cancelled, well, it's 3 damage. You're happy with that. And this will almost always guarantee your healing with Tonic, since most decks don't have a print 5 value defense. I know the other TTA ones, well, actually only Golden Bat, since Jill also has a print 5, but yeah, only Golden Bat I think has a print 5, and Willow, and well, Winter Soldier I guess. And those are the only ones with the actual capability of blocking print 5. So against everyone else, you will have guaranteed healing with this, which is really good. This also, of course, allows you to kite with advantage. You can move up to them, attack with this, gain an action, move away again, so they will still have to approach you, which is like really good. If you don't want to just attack again. And Daisy being able to throw this is really ridiculous, as we will see when we will talk about one of her other cards. Yeah, it actually gives you the option to go quite aggressive with Jill, since, well, swinging 2 5s and then 2 other attacks in one turn, maybe combined with Hypno-Ray, so the other cards, since they will probably be of a lower value, get bumped up. That can lead to actually some really insane damage, so don't mistake Jill just for a fatigue-only fighter. Of course, she is really good in that, since the Daisy scheme is insanely good, but in some matchups where you know, well, Daisy won't last long, or actually my opponent is better in fatigue than I am, you might just want to go on the hyper-aggressive side and try to kill them with a combo turn, like this. So, yeah, really versatile and cool card, probably one of the best in the deck, and yeah, you don't complain about a 5-value action gain. Next up, we have a 4-value versatile Annie. It's Gyroscopic Jetpack. With a boost value of 2, it says after combat, move your fighter up to 2 spaces. They may move through opposing fighters. You have 3 copies of this. Okay, so 4-value versatiles are great. That's usually a max value block in most decks. For you it isn't. You have higher blocks than this, which doesn't like make this card worse. It's insanely good. Being able to move 2 spaces through opposing fighters is really nice to attack to avoid double attacks. Since if you get attacked by a melee fighter first action, you can just step away 2 spaces and then, well, they can't attack again. And it's just kind of skirmish, but better, because skirmish is conditional on winning combat. This just always moves you. And you can move through opposing fighters, so this is your only actual guaranteed way to get out of pins. Of course, you have something like Battle of Wits or one other card that can deal 1 auto damage at least, to get like 1 health sidekicks out of the way, but this is your only guaranteed one, since the other cards could get fainted. Well, this also can get fainted, so, well, that doesn't make sense. But if you're not playing against 1 health sidekicks and you're like getting pinned in the corridor by their hero and their sidekick, well, you can move with this through them, and then, yeah, you're still getting attacked with second action since you're still adjacent to them, but at least you get out of the pin, so I guess that's fine. Print 4 also later can be useful to proc Tonic, because, well, it's a print 4. And Tonic cares about printed values, and maybe later in the game your opponent doesn't have any print 4 defenses anymore. But you'd rather use this as a block, since you want to attack with lower stuff most of the time, since you want to proc Hypno-Ray, get deck knowledge, and actually increase your card's value to kind of get them better than they should be otherwise. So yeah, this is just a really good card. You don't complain about a 4-value block, and Daisy being able to block with this is really good. That makes her survivability just go up even further. And we'll see Daisy is one of the tanky sidekicks with the other cards, since, as you will probably know, since we covered the 3 Jill Trent cards at the start, everything we will cover now, Daisy can use, which is, holy cow, she is insane. Yeah, next we'll talk about Insightful Deduction. It's a 3-value versatile Annie with boost value of 2. It says, after combat, reveal the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, put 1 of them at the bottom of the deck and the rest on top in any order. Well, 3-value versatiles are good. Their average block value, as attack, they all like, okay, they won't proc Hypno-Ray as often, since average block value is 3, so if they block with 3, Hypno-Ray won't proc, but if you get this into something like a skirmish, that you feel really good. But this is of course mostly used for the effect. Being able to look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck can be really good, since you can rearrange the boost values for Hypno-Ray, Battle of Wits, or anything else. So you can maybe put a 1-value boost on top, and then almost guarantee like Battle of Wits winning if you hit a 2 boost on your one, which is like kind of likely since you have a bit above average boost values. Or you could just put a maybe 3 boosts or 4 boosts on top of their deck to actually get the +3 on your own attack, or whatever. Your opponent, of course, will also know where you put the cards, so they can plan their block accordingly as well. But it doesn't help as often as you think, because sometimes they can't just really do something about it. If they only have print 3 blocks in their hand right now and you attack them with 2, well, you're getting the plus no matter what, and yeah. Putting a card on the bottom of their deck, however, is insanely strong. If they don't have effects that shuffle their decks, of course. So, against fighters like Little Red or Wukong or whatever, you can bury one of their key cards on their bottom, of course, if you reveal it, to kind of mess with their deck size, and also, again, later know what their last boost value will be. This can be really good later in the game, since you can, if you actually manage to remember what they have on bottom, it can mean that you can get some really crazy late game plays with something like Battle of Wits or one other card you have that we will talk about in a bit being caught red-handed. So this is just really cool. Of course, it won't be as great in every game, since it's still just reveal top 3, so it could just be regroup, regroup, in which case it doesn't matter as much. But the potential of this card is insanely high. And yeah, like I said, you can just put one of their key cards on bottom, so that they don't get to see it until the end of the game. You can maybe get a high boost on bottom to get some high Hypno Ray stuff at the end, or whatever. There are many insane cool plays you can do with this, but yeah. A bit inconsistent regarding what you reveal, and your opponent also will know what you actually put where, so they can still play a bit around that, but still really cool card, and in some situations this can actually win you games, just from this effect. Next up we have Stasis Diffuser. It's another 3-value versatile Any, with a boost value of 1, and it says immediately, the value of your opponent's card is equal to its printed value and cannot be changed. So 3-value versatiles are good, as usual. They are average block value, you don't complain about that. The effect can act like an additional feint, since all during combat bombs, like shift, boosts or blind boost, don't really matter against this. If Houdini plays a big reveal into this, well, you kind of feinted a big reveal. Of course he still gets his boost trick effects, but the actual value of the big reveal will stay at 2, because it cannot be changed. So this is actually a really underrated defense card, and one of your best defenses if you expect such a card against Daisy, since Daisy usually can't cancel, so your opponent will want to use their big bump up swings like shift and stuff against her most of the time to guarantee the effect. But this will say, not with me. And if your opponent's card value can't change, there are not as many cards that like start at a 4 or higher and then bump up again. I think it's just something like Forever Hide and Beast Form, against which this card is still really good. So yeah, of course this also works against +1 or +2 characters. Anything that bumps up value, this will say not good, we don't do that here. And yeah, this is a really cool card, probably one of the more underrated ones in her deck. Of course, it won't be as great into someone like Bigfoot, since Bigfoot has really high values, but there's almost one card in any deck that you actually want to play this against. In Bigfoot's deck, it would be the Shift. And yeah, if you can line it up, this can function as an additional cancel, which is really cool. And then we get to Ace Fighter, a 5-value versatile. For Daisy only, with a boost value of 3 with an after combat effect. It says draw 1 card. You have 2 copies of this. Okay, 5-value versatiles are insane. We have only seen one yet, and that's in Winter Soldier's deck, and that one has a negative effect, discarding 2 random cards, because it would otherwise probably be a bit too strong. But this is just a 5 value commanding impact right here. You just have a 5 value defense or attack and you draw a card. This card is insanely good. And yeah, this is a Daisy defense. Remember when I said, yeah, she has Jetpack, so 3 print 4 blocks, which makes her really tanky. Well, now she has 2 print 5 blocks as well. Whoa! Yeah, it kind of gives Daisy 4 print 5 defenses, or 4 print 5 value attacks, which makes her just one of the best sidekicks in the game regarding survivability. It's insane. Like, when I talked about you being able to chain with Energizing Spray, yeah, if you do that with Daisy, since Energizing is any card you can energizing, Ace Fighter, swinging 4 print 5 attacks in one turn, which is 20 total damage. That's insane. And yeah, you have 4 print 5 works with Daisy, because as we will see, you have another print 5 defense. Because why not? As if like Daisy and Jill weren't tanky enough. This card is just so incredibly versatile and has so much potential. If combined with the rest of your deck, it's really cool. In some matchups you just want to go actually aggressive with this, swing with it because it's a print 5. In some matchups you just defend Daisy until the very end, and then maybe your opponent thought, yeah, she won't survive this next commanding impact. And then you play this and ha! Joke's on you, she lives. It can either keep Daisy alive for way longer than she should, enabling her to play the rest of her schemes, or just gives her 4 print 5 attacks in one turn, if you want. It's really cool, and yeah, Daisy is just insane, man. It's like, I would almost bet my money that Daisy would actually win a 1v1 against someone like Spike or Willow or whatever, just because she has this card. It's so funny. Daisy is insane. And yeah, we'll get to the last Daisy card. It's Sisters in Arms, of course, like I said, Daisy only. Boost value 1, and says this card's effect cannot be cancelled. If Daisy and Jill are adjacent, and Daisy is attacking, Daisy gains the effect of Jill Trent's gadget. Well, yeah, this is, well, 3 value versatiles are good. Let's start with that, but the effect is insanely conditional. Let's just get over that again, and let's say it depends on having Jill and Daisy adjacent. Okay, that's not the hardest thing to do. In melee matchups, you actually might want to have that, because you're shielding one with the other. So yeah, okay. Daisy has to attack with this. In which case, like, you could also attack with one of her print 5s. So yeah, well, okay. Let's get to the next one. And your opponent plays a higher or lower print block than this, regarding on which gadget you have active. And let me remind you, average block is exactly 3. So if you have Tonic, you want your opponent to play a print 2 defense or lower against Daisy, which is like, they probably won't do that as much, because, well, you have 4 print 5 attacks with Daisy. Why would your opponent play a print 2? They'd rather play that into Jill later if she has Hypnoray active. If you have Hypnoray active and you're attacking with Daisy, well, you could also just attack with Jill and just guarantee the stuff. It's just, this card is just way too conditional in most cases. You could just attack with Jill with a better card instead, or actually attack with a good card with Daisy. You have so many better options than this, so it usually only gets gets used on defense for Daisy if you like don't have any better options, because hey, it's still print 3 block and you don't complain about that. And even if you're expecting Daisy to die, well, you throw this because it's otherwise kind of just a dead card. This is like your number 1 discard fodder in the deck. If you have to discard something and you have this in hand, yeah, discard this. It's usually way too conditional, or you can use it as a boost, even though it's only boost 1. Well, yeah. Other than that, you can in some cases guarantee the healing on Tonic if you know your opponent only has 2 value blocks left and like Jill is low, so you don't want to get in with her. You can play this with Daisy, keep Jill like behind her, and then Jill will still heal one from Tonic. So yeah, that can work in some really niche cases, but yeah, this is not really a great card. Then we will get to Laser Pen. It's a 2-value versatile Annie. With a boost value of 2, it says after combat, do 1 damage to the opposing fighter. 3 copies. 2-value versatiles are usually okay. They're 1 below the average block value, they probably won't deal damage on attack, but, of course, for you have Hypno-Ray Blaster, so that changes. 2-value attacks are actually really good for you. The 1-out damage is really nice to deal with 1 health sidekicks. This is like the other tool next to Battle of Wits where you can break pins if it's with 1 health sidekicks. You can probably attack them with this and kill them, and then you get out of the pin or whatever. But yeah, other than that, this is actually one of your best attack cards, since average block is 3, so you will probably get Hypno-Ray effects off, and then you reveal their card. And this kinda is a 3-value attack, since it's a 2 with 1 auto damage, just the 1 value that you get less is pumped in the effect, which is really good for you, since you want to have a lower printed value. So if they block for a 3, you reveal a 2 boost, for example, then this is a 4 that will still deal 2 damage because you have the 1 after combat, which is really good. This can lead to some really nice damage, and you don't really complain about auto damage at all. So yeah, really good. In some cases, like the Wukong matchup, this is actually one of your best blocks as well, since in that matchup against Ryu Jingabong or any like of the bait attacks, this will just kill the clone. And against Ox, well, you have 4 boosts in the deck, so you can still boost this up to 6. So yeah, in some cases this can actually be one of your best block cards, but it's still like a really good attack for you, and it's just cool card. Some said it would be the regroup of the deck. Don't agree with that. I think it's really good. And then we have Caught Red-Handed. It's a 1-value versatile Annie with a boost value of 2. It says after combat, your opponent discards 1 card. If you won the combat, they discard 2 cards instead. You have 2 copies of this. Okay, I mentioned this card before with Insightful Deduction, and we will exactly see why now. 1-value versatiles are not great. Like, what do you want to do with 1-value versatile, you ask? It's like regroup, it's bait attack, but this is so much better than a regroup. Yeah, this is kind of the regroup effect of your deck, meaning your opponent does that. If you won, it's like 2 instead. For regroup, it's you draw 1. If you won, you draw 2. This is with this card on your opponent, which is like infinitely better. This card is always nice to have, since you typically 1-out value your opponent with your 2 Daisy schemes, and then also this discarding the cards. And this combined with Hypno-Ray is one of the scariest cards in your deck actually, since print 1 attacks will usually be lower than their defense. In which case Hypno-Ray gets to bump this up, and when I said Insightful later in the game for the bottom card can lead to a nasty Caught Red-Handed, yeah, late in the game they probably don't have many great blocks left, your opponent. So they maybe only have a print 3 left, and then you put a 3-value boost on the bottom of the deck with Insightful Deduction. So when you attack with this, you will get this up to a 4, meaning this will win combat. And this winning combat is an insane trade for you. Your opponent kind of spends 3 cards on 1 combat. They block or attack with 1, and then they have to discard 2 additional ones. Discarding 1 is already good for a 2-for-1 trade. That's why many people don't like Medusa, because she just outvalues you so much. But getting 2 out of these is insane. And there are actually some matchups where you attack and some where you defend with this. Against Wukong, Ryu Jingabong, which is like otherwise one of his scarier cards, because it will actually also get a 2-for-1 trade most of the time. But if you actually defend with this against the first half of Ryu, since the first half is a 0 value attack, you win with this. Wukong has to discard 2, and then you play a second card against the second part of Ryu, and then you kind of traded 3 discarded cards for Wukong, 2 for you. And that's against like one of the best value attacks in his deck, and it's really cool what you can do against this. Against Genie, you can just normally attack with this and win against Lamp. In which case, well, he will heal 3, but he will also discard 2, which probably hurts him way more than you mind the healing. So this is a really nasty card, and combined with Hypno-Ray, this can lead to some insane value. And yeah. Then, lastly, I already mentioned it, we have Indestructible Cloth. It's a 5 value printed defense any, the boost value of 2, and says immediately, this combat, your fighter does not take damage from effects other than combat damage. You have 2 copies. 5 value blocks are insane. Like, we have only seen 5 value blocks for Willow, Golden Bat, also in TTA, and then Winter Soldier if we count Reflex. 5 value blocks are insane. Like, 4 value blocks are already really good as a max value block, as some might say. You're kinda getting some really good value out of them, and yeah, but this is insane. 5 value blocks, of course, will almost prevent everything combat damage base stuff. Like, even if they play their Log from Bigfoot or Big Review from Houdini into this, well, you're still fine. That's you preventing 5 damage from their biggest swing. That's insane survivability. And well, the effect just kind of makes this the overall perfect block card, since only combat damage can do something against this. This is an immediate effect, and since you are defending with this, since it is a block card, this will always happen, even if your opponent offensive feints, because you defend over results first. And yeah, usually, if you know your opponent has like a big print 5 defense, for example Golden Bat, you know Golden Bat has he laughs at your feebleness with, which is just a print 5 defense, which is already a really good card. Well, you want to punish that card by playing effect-based damage cards. Something low that maybe deals 1 damage after combat, that will still actually deal damage against their biggest block, and then it's gone until like you play your actual big attack, and then like they can't play their print 5 defense again. This doesn't care. You don't take effect damage from this, because yeah, you only take combat damage. This is just the perfect defense. There is probably no better defense than this, to be honest. Like, from normal defense stuff, not like elementary stuff from Sherlock where you just blank the cards or ignore or anything else. Just base value stuff, this is probably one of the best defenses in the game. It's insanely good. And yeah, Daisy can block with this. So let me say that again. Daisy has technically 4 print 5 blocks, 3 print 4 blocks, and stasis to maybe cancel their value increases. Holy cow! And Jill has also 2 print 5 blocks with this, 3 print 4 blocks with Jetpack, and then 3 utility bells, or up to 9 utility bells if you want with the Daisy schemes. These 2 are so incredibly tanky. Their defenses are so strong. You don't take damage with them most of the time. It's insane. Yeah. I don't know. I think I've said everything I can about this card, and the rest, it's ridiculous. And then we'll get to the conclusion. Jill is, of course, one of the most versatile fighters we have yet seen in our match. She is incredibly tanky with her high blocks, has Daisy for an insane value game, and almost always will outlast the opponent. Since Daisy probably won't die, since you have so many insane defenses, you get both schemes, you have 36 cards, most decks only have 30. And then you just win in fatigue. Of course, one of your weaknesses is Daisy not being able to cancel, but there are ways you can play around it. you have Stasis to at some point still kinda cancel their effect. Or you could just go actual mayhem with Jill with your action game to kind of prevent them from getting their good effects onto Daisy. But in some matchups that can really matter, for example in the Daredevil one, Daisy is more like a liability than actually an help because she can't cancel the devils or whatever. And yeah, that can be really bad in some cases, and it is definitely one of her weaknesses. But Daisy's still an insanely strong sidekick, so it doesn't matter as often. Your gadgets, of course, give you an important decision at the start of every turn, and which you want to use will vary between matchups, even just between games. If you're playing 2 games against the same character, you might use Tonic in one of them the whole time because, well, maybe you got to discard your cancels at the start of the game and then, well, you just out-heal them, or and then in the second game you go full aggro with Hypno-Ray or whatever. You're insanely versatile with your decisions, what you want to do. You can play the nasty fatigue game, or you can just go full aggressive. Typically, you want to keep Hypno-Ray active for the most part of the game, to just keep the threat of your cancel, to actually deal good damage with your attacks, bumping up the value, getting hand knowledge, and so on. But also, Tonic can give you some insane fatigue play later. If they don't have their best blocks anymore, you can get some really good healing out of that, and that just increases your health pool even higher with your high blocks. It's really insane. Of course, keeping Daisy alive is almost always key for Jill, since you don't have much reliable damage in the deck. Hypno-Ray, of course, is reliant on the boost values of your opponents, so if they have low boosts, well, you won't get much damage with it. If you like go for your combo turn, well, yeah, you have 2 print 5s with Jill herself, and then that's also kind of it. You still have some print 4s, but yeah. Actually, much of the damage is in Daisy with the 2 print 5s on her with Ace Fighter. So don't expect to actually kill your opponent most of the time. Of course, there are some matchups where you can actually go full aggressive and still get some nasty damage. But usually you want to outlast your opponent with 2 Daisy schemes, keeping her alive, and then winning in fatigue, since you have just more value than they have. Well, yeah, like I said, that can vary. There are some matchups where you just go full aggro and reveal all of their cards, get full hand knowledge all the time with Hypno-Ray, and just pressure the hand. That can also still happen. So don't rely on this. I just commentated on my Twitch a Winter of Champions game. It was Jill against Tomoe, which is usually a Tomoe favorite matchup in my opinion, in which you actually want to go full aggro with Daisy, since Tomoe usually doesn't want to go at her, because she can't really deal with psychics that well, and Daisy being able to throw 4 print 5s there is insanely strong. So yeah, in some matchups you actually just go full aggressive and don't like wait for your Daisy schemes and outvalue. So yeah, it's really cool. I just find her insanely interesting. So getting to her card tier list, of course the placements of these cards can change depending on the matchup. In D tier we have no cards. All of Jill's cards are just at least kinda useful. In C tier we only have Sisters in Arms. It's still a print 3 block for Daisy, you don't really complain about that, but the effect is just way too conditional most of the time, so you probably won't get to proc that. But other than that, yeah, well, it's still a print 3 block, so it's okay. But this is kind of your discard fodder card. Then in B tier we have Laser Pen, which could technically also be in A tier. Like almost every of her cards could be A tier or higher, it's insane. Yeah, Laser Pen just on its own, 2 value versatiles aren't that great. You get the 1 ping, which is nice to get rid of 1 health sidekicks, and it can technically bump up well with Hypno-Ray. But like I won't take that into consideration as much, since that very much varies between your opponent's blocks and their boost values. So yeah. Then Stasis. In some matchups can be insanely good. Against Houdini it almost functions like an additional cancel. if you can use this right, it's really good. It kind of gives Daisy the option to cancel, and even if you like don't get this into a during combat bump effect, it's still print 3 block, so it's not the end of the world. So just good card overall. Has the potential to be higher in some interactions, of course, but yeah. And then A tier, Insightful Deduction. This is one where I was like not so sure where to put it. At the start I had it in B tier just because it's a bit like not reliable enough for me. Of course it can win you the game, but in most cases it won't be that impactful. However, then I thought like, okay, but it has the possibility to do so many insane cool things, and it's versatile that it could in some games just be an insane S tier card that, like I said, wins you the game. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just do the middle, being an A tier card, revealing the cards of your opponent's deck, rearranging them to actually match what you want to do with Hypnoray for the boost values or Battle of Wits, or set up some crazy stuff later with Caught Red-Handed with the bottom card, or just going simple and bottoming one of their best cards, maybe Drax Beast Form, the second one. Well, if he doesn't get that until the end of the game, you don't have to worry about it. And later, he probably won't have as many cards to waste again. So that's really good for you. And you probably win the game from that on. So yeah, this card is just really versatile, it's really cool. Of course, sometimes it will kind of do not much, but... and it also like depends on your hand what you have to attack with and so on, but the potential of this card is really high, so I figured A tier was fine. Then we have Hypnotist, 3 value cancel, you don't complain about that. Also having the option to not cancel with this in some cases can be really good. Of course, it kind of forces you to stay on Hypnoray in some matchups, but that's like not the end of the world since you want to stay at that most of the game anyways. And yeah, you don't complain about the 3 value cancel. Usually I have Feint in B tier because it can be exploited a bit in some matchups where you just get punished really hard. But since this is a 3 value block, well, it's just better. And yeah, really good card. Then Utility Belt, it's also like a contender for ST. There are so many contenders for S tier in this deck, it's insane. Like both S and A tier cards are like above average. Utility Belt is just so insanely versatile, technically giving you the healing, drawing cards, or movement. You can choose whatever you want in the situation, which is really good. And yeah, you don't complain about that. Also, you being able to recur this or the cancel is really good. So yeah. And Battle of Wits, probably one of your best and safest attack cards, will almost always deal a bit of damage, whether it is from the Hypnoray bump or from the actual effect after combat. This can lead to some really nasty after combat damage, like if you get 2 of these, yeah, that's 6 damage your opponent couldn't really do anything against, which is really good. Of course, it is a bit luck based, and in some cases actually you can bump up the value of this and still get the after combat 3 damage. Looking at you, Cat, huh? But yeah, just a good card overall. Also, the 4 boost can help you in late games to reach or run away. Just really good. And then we have last card in A tier, Caught Red-Handed. Of course, 1 value versatiles aren't that great to actually deal damage or prevent damage, but just the possibilities of this card with the huge value you can get just with the 1 discard or even the 2 discards if you play it in the right circumstances. Maybe you set it up with Insightful before and then get a 2 value discard, or you play it into a Ryu or a Lamp or whatever, or you just get the normal bump with Hypnoray to get the 2 discards, in which case this card is just insanely strong. Since you want to go for the value game most of the time, just having discard is already strong, and this being able to discard 2 is just insane. And then we go to the S tier cards. We have Energizing Spray. You don't complain about 5 attacks, and this gaining action and being in any can lead to you actually being one of the coolest combo characters in the game sometimes. You can just deal 20 damage in 1 turn, which is insane. And yeah, this kind of gives you the option to also go on a really aggressive playstyle if you need it. And yeah, then Daisy Scheme, well, shuffling a total of 6 cards back is insane. That's 6 additional cards that normal decks don't have, so yeah, it's the main reason why your opponent wants to kill Daisy in most matchups. And yeah, insanely good card. Reshuffling, recursion is always really good, and yeah. Then Cloth, one of the best defenses in all of Unmatched in my opinion. Print 5 blocks are already good, and then like not being able to take effect damage is even better. Really good. Jetpack, Print 4, Versatiles are also really good. Can sometimes give you healing with Tonic. Reliable way to get out of pins. Movement is good, avoid double attacks. Print 4 block, I don't know, it's just a really good card. And then also Ace Fighter for Daisy. Print 5 Versatiles are insane. There's a reason why we have only seen 2 in total in all of the decks yet, because it's just so insanely strong in most decks that would just make the character way too strong. Drawing the card as well is really good, and yeah, just nothing you can complain about that. You can attack with Print 5, which is really good. You can defend with it to make Daisy way more tanky, and yeah, like there's almost an argument for every card except Sisters in Arms to be S tier in some way. Yeah, it was really hard to rank these, but I think this is kind of where they are at. Of course, the tiers in themselves are not ranked, but yeah, Jill has just so many really good cards, and that's also why she is like so versatile and so strong. And speaking of strong, let's talk about her matchups. Of course, as always, this is only based on personal experiences, so feel free to disagree in the comments, and big thanks to Kiet for helping me making this as accurate as possible. We'll start with a don't try it here. Well, since you want to outvalue your opponent most of the time, what do you not like? Well, fighters that outvalue you. Daredevil has 3 devils onto Daisy, and you can't actually deal much damage against him if he stays the whole hand count. Luke has insanely bad boost values. Trash Talk is a menace. He can like almost insta-wipe Daisy, and then still standing is a problem, but yeah. Sherlock, yeah, well, Sherlock Strange also will outvalue you. And then Ghost Rider is actually really bad, because, well, Daisy can't cancel, so he can just insta-wipe Daisy with 1 Blaze at the start of the game. Maybe also hit Jill for 5. And he doesn't really care taking that himself. Also, most of his blocks are 3, so that kind of makes him a bit more predictable, but also makes it hard to proc your Hypnoray at some point. And yeah, the rooming just kills you over time. Really annoying. Then slightly bad, we have Electra. Electra is just Electra. Rex can sometimes just outright kill you. Same with Tomoe, where they just go for Jill herself and just kill her. Red can actually really easily deal with Daisy, since Ice, both of them will guarantee to kill her. And then she can also play a nasty value game with hands and actually kill you. Bat can also outvalue you, same with Yen, but it's like not they are unwinnable, they are just slightly bad, like not really even still favored for their character, but Jill still has a chance into any of these. And I have actually won any of these matchups as Jill already. Then the even ones are just all across the board. You have someone like Raptors, Wukong, Tesla, Medusa, Sinbad. You have kind of any archetype you can think of, because Jill is just so versatile. Yeah, the ones she is favored in. She-Hulk, she just outvalue her most of the time. Moon Knight the same, Drag as well. Panther also. Then someone like Alice, you can actually just outright kill in some cases, or even Bullseye, where you just go full on aggressive. And yeah, then the free win matchups, well, it's the mostly bottom tier and low tier characters, so yeah. Talking about maps, kinda same as Widow, Jill isn't really that map dependent. often you want a medium-sized map, so you can hide Daisy at the start of the game, run away a bit, but still reach later. If Daisy should die, since you are a move to melee, you can have some problems to reach your opponent, especially if your 4 boosts are gone. But yeah, medium-sized maps where you can hide Daisy is usually best, but if you have map kick, you rather like pick a map your opponent doesn't like than actually picking something you want, because it's just most of the time more important to pick a bad map against your opponent than picking a good one for you, since you don't really care about map that much. But if you want to pick a good map for you, the best 3 in my opinion are probably something like King Solomon's Mine and Baskerville, where you can hide Daisy really easily. And they have like small centers, so you can reach most of the time. And Soho against melee stuff, where you can also hide Daisy on the rooftops. It's kind of large, and since you can hide Daisy, you expect to get most value, like almost perfect value out of her schemes, and then you can just run away, since Soho is kind of big. And yeah, but like I said, usually you just pick what your opponent doesn't like rather than picking what you want. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Shout out again to Kiet for helping me getting familiar with Jill. Some of her tricks, gameplay, matchups, maps, whatever. Feel free to write feedbacks or questions in the comments. And please tell me which character you want me to cover next. Planned for next week are something like Oda, we will do next week. And then later you wanted to see me doing a Daredevil cover. So yeah, that's what's planned. Tell me what you want. And yeah, then I'll see you in the next video. Until next time.